The Wednesday week is sponsored by Bentoria.com. That's BENTORIA.com.
There's a chance here, a great save, a turner from McClare. Mike Hannon, a terrific goal by Sheridan.
Brexman against Jones. Get in.
You could have two goalkeepers in there that would have trouble saving that.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to the Wednesday week, the world's #1 Sheffield Wednesday podcast. I'm Lord Hillsborough, and with me on the line today we've got James.
Hello, still revelling from a truly fantastic 24 hours. Firstly, Ireland qualify for the Euros. Then it's confirmed Australia will be allowed to enter Eurovision 2016. What a time to be alive.
Cackling in the background, we've got Victoria. Hello, my darling.
Hello, my lord. I'm so excited because if Australia are in that means I can go to James's Eurovision party again.
Yay!
Yeah, I'm so excited.
We've got Mr. Fudge. Hello there, Fudge, old boy.
Good evening, sire. Bonjour, mon petit chou-fleur. There you are. That's hello, my little cauliflower in French for you there.
And we've got Eddie. Hello there, old boy.
Oh, baby, there ain't no mountain high enough, there ain't no valley low enough, there ain't no river wide enough to keep me from getting to you, babe.
Well, thank you very much. Right then, so let's crack on then, ladies and gents. Obviously, the first thing we need to mention as football fans is the awful goings-on over in Paris, which I'm sure everybody, of course, knows about, but we are going to speak about the international games tonight, and we certainly don't want anybody to think that we're ignoring what's happened there. Just awful. Nobody should go to a football game and have to worry about anything like that.
It's just horrendous. I mean, it's like when you look at like the Bradford or the Hillsborough or anything, and you think that could be one of us that's going to that game, that's just going out on a Friday night to watch their football team, and that kicks off. Or you're going out for a Friday night for a meal with your partner, or your family, you're going to a gig, and that happens. And I just think that, you know, we don't do a lot of sentimental stuff on here, but I do think that it's worth mentioning because that could have been any of us, guys, any of us, and it's horrendous. And fair play to the FA tonight for pulling it out the bag and putting on a bloody good show at Wembley. I just thought it was really, really emotional. I thought the players all themselves were so brave because in that situation, you're the number one target. I just think it could have been any of us.
Unbelievable. The football family, you know, let's not put too fine a point on it. England versus France. That's not a spirit of brotherhood usually. There's an awful lot of old scores that want to be settled between two great historical rivals. I think tonight was very, very different. And the scenes before the game were just incredible. To hear English fans singing the French national anthem, that even as someone who does love France dearly, even as an Englishman, that hairs were up on the back of my neck. That was a real emotional moment. It shows that football and sport kind of can transcend the things that separate us in this life. So well done, everybody.
Absolutely. Je suis Paris. Right, so obviously let's have a chat about these international games because there has been one or two Wednesday players involved.
Joe.
Never heard of Joe?
That's how you pronounce it, isn't it? Joe. How you lot say it? Isn't that how you say it?
Yeah.
Joe. That's how it gets pronounced. I've been there. I've heard it. Joe.
Stand on that plug. Yow!
No, that's how Michael Jackson would have pronounced his name.
Yeah, that sounds like Michael Jackson stepping on a Lego. Don't all laugh at once, kids. Anyway.
Sorry, I just coughed.
Christ. Bloody hell. I know it's late.
Tough crowd.
Yes, Lucas João started for Portugal this evening. I mean, playing up front for Portugal, it's a big deal. Do you know what I mean? They've had an array of people in that lineup. You know, you've got Eusebio, Ronaldo's played up front for them. I'm struggling here. Nuno Gomez. Do you know what I mean?
Figo?
Figo, he's there. But yes, João has played tonight. Missed an absolute sitter.
And how very kind of him to do so. Obviously, keep the attention off him so he can stay at the Wednesdays. Obviously, we've had Mr. Westwood, who obviously Ireland have now qualified as well, so they're going to be the Euros too. Fantastic news for Mr. Westwood.
I'm particularly pleased about this because I choose to believe that there is a part of me that is Irish. I'm not sure which part, and unfortunately, my family tree suggests that it's not true. But having been there a few times and thought, I just feel at home here. So I probably take more interest in Ireland internationals these days than I do of England internationals, and particularly in this qualifying. England qualifying was a foregone conclusion many, many weeks ago. Ireland, in the spirit of Sheffield Wednesday, Ireland did it the hard way. They nearly threw it away, and at the last minute they pulled it back, and they qualified last night in some amazing scenes. And I would, as I put on Twitter the last night, I would have gladly donated a limb in order to be at the game and in Dublin last night, because that just looked like an incredible evening for everyone there. And chances are now that Kieran Westwood, if he continues playing the way he has been, could well find himself in the Ireland squad and off to the Euros, which would be brilliant.
At the risk of getting political tonight as well, by the way, I knew that there was a good chunk of people in Scotland that wanted independence, and there you've got it. We're all off to the Euros. You can remain independent back home. Well done for you. I'm chuffed for you.
You'll have Bully knocking on your door, old boy. And of course, we had Mr. Poodle, who has been out there as well. in what can only be said, played incredibly well too.
He's done well, actually, hasn't he? Since I only heard earlier this evening from one of my Wednesday week colleagues that he transferred from the Czech Republic to Croatia to play tonight.
God.
So
CR to me means Croatia, all right? It's been a very long week. I've managed 2 events this week. I don't need your shit, Edward.
It's fantastic, and it can only really point to the qualities that we've got now coming into Sheffield Wednesday, and obviously that we have now got international players going out there. Of course, we've had Joe Wildsmith out there with England under-21s as well. There was a cracking video online of his training this week with the under-21s as well. So it was tweeted out by various different Wednesday outlets, including the Wednesday Week, of course. But yes, it's just lovely to see, isn't it?
It's brilliant, and it's years and years and years since we've seen it. It makes me worried, because I always think that they're all going to get crocked while they're on international duty and not be able to play for us again, which almost happened, didn't it, with Westwood, because he had to pull out of the Irish squad with an injury. Fingers crossed he'll be back for the game on Saturday. But it's great, and just shows what a long way we've come from. You only need to go back 2-3 years, and the thought of having anyone even close to an international squad on our books would have been truly laughable.
Andy Hinchcliffe, I think, every time. Do you remember when I used to look on CFAX when the England squad would get announced, and it used to say, Arsenal, Man U, Arsenal, Spurs, Sheffield, and it'd just be Andy Hinchcliffe's name there. It used to make me smile. Bless him, and his big Dom House and chin.
I think at some point Andy Sinton made it into the England squad, didn't he?
He did.
That was part of one of the greatest moments ever for me as a young Wednesday fan, which was seeing that Wednesday squad announced with 5 Sheffield Wednesday players included. That was just after we'd signed Sinton and Des Walker. Unbelievable scenes. It's only now, as an adult, I've tried to justify the fact that Graham Taylor team wasn't as bad as people make out, that I have to accept that actually, yes, it was as bad as people made out.
Right then. So obviously we've got some Sheffield Wednesday news to go this week as well. We'll start off with the bit of a change in our football committee. Jonathan Hill and Paul Senior have both left the football committee that we've spoke about quite a lot actually on the show. This new way of recruitment. Only Glenn Roeder is now left from the original 4. Do we think this is a change in the club, or do we think Mr. C is just after some new advisement?
It was always described, wasn't it, as being a fluid committee, and people would come and they would go. And we've already seen that, because we had, I can't remember, the guy that was on it and then went off to Leeds and stayed there for 5 minutes and then moved on from there as well. I honestly think that part of this is just that Mr. Chansiri is just starting to really learn what he's doing. He's starting to get to know football better, and maybe that relatively basic advice that he needed at the start of his tenure he maybe doesn't need anymore. I think I personally think that it's pretty apparent that Glenn Roeder is his number one advisor. He is his right hand man, if you like. I think he has the greatest say in who comes into the club, certainly along with the chairman and the head coach. And I think that this change just kind of reflects that, really, that maybe he doesn't feel that he needs people on payroll that he doesn't really need their advice anymore, and I think that's a great thing. I think it shows that the chairman's kind of growing and getting more into the game and expanding his knowledge, and maybe he doesn't need that advice now.
Absolutely. Obviously, we've not spoken a great deal about Mr. Roeder, have we? Really, on the podcast.
Ooh. Do you know, I tweeted about this a couple of weeks ago because it really rattled me in pre-season when people were absolutely slating Glenn Roeder before he'd even done a single thing at the football club. People saying he's only here because he wants the manager's job, and then people even after they'd appointed a head coach, people saying, "Oh, Roeder will be really annoyed that this nobody that brought into the club's actually doing well because he wanted that job." We talked about him a couple of months ago, didn't we? We talked about what Glenn Roeder has done in terms of travelling around Europe, building up his contacts. I may be wrong, but I think he's done a tremendous job in recruiting some of the players that he's brought in. And we've already talked about Lucas João and the impact that he's had. Whether or not he's going to stay at the club, and we'll talk about the Jose Semedo interview on Radio Sheffield a bit later on. He hinted that he doesn't think that João will be around for long. If he does move on, we will make a ridiculous amount of profit on that player, and that's something that we haven't done for a long time. So if we're bringing in players that do well for us, great. If we're bringing players that do well and we sell on at a profit, great. I honestly believe Paul Aldred is moving on at the end of this season. We know that. I think that Glenn Roeder will be our director of football next season. And for one, I am all for it. I think that the guy's doing a brilliant job and is an integral part now of this football club. And why we've got Wednesday fans who want any opportunity to absolutely slate the guy when he's not done one single interview, he's not tried to appear in one single photograph since he's been at the club. He's happy being in the background. He's gone out of his way to be in the background, and still people give him stick, and I just don't get it. Rant over.
We are getting very political tonight, aren't we, ladies and gents? Well, this is very un-Wednesday week-like.
Shall I chuck in a couple of knob gags later on?
Fire away, old boy, absolutely.
No.
I'm just thinking Glenn Roeder looks like Anne Robinson.
True that. It is true that.
Thank you so much, Fudge. Right, so obviously James mentioned it just a second or two ago. There was a fantastic interview with Semedo, again by Rob Staten, on Radio Sheffield this week. Obviously plugging his new book, which obviously we spoke about last week as well. But one of the things, as you mentioned, as James said, was possibly João not being with us too long. Now, of course, we've seen that the various people interested. Everton seem to be the front runners at the moment. To me, this is going to be a real sort of statement of intent from the club if we're going to keep him or if we're going to sell.
I think he is big time. I mean, you remember when we signed him, we were like, bloody hell, €3 million on some sort of kid that's never played a first team game and never achieved anything. Now it's like, all right, so other people want him. So let's just like tie him down a bit. Let's put him in a little shed in Sheffield. No one will know. But no, don't let him go. That was the whole reason that we signed him, was that he was going to make us money in the future. He was going to be one for the future. Don't let him go now. It seems pointless.
Is there a worry, though, that he might want to go and once a player's head's been turned,
Oh, of course.
particularly when they're that young as well, if his head's been turned by a Premier League club, is it better if they come along and offer us a daft amount of money that we take it? And the reason I ask that is because I see such a difference between all the rumours linking Tom Lees to a Premier League move, which I don't believe for a second, because I don't think Tom Lees wants to go anywhere. I think he's happy. I think he signed his new contract in the summer. He's on money that he's happy with. I don't think that he'll be that interested in moving on. I think that he thinks that he can be the guy that leads Sheffield Wednesday to the Premier League as club captain in the future. Lucas João is a totally different kettle of fish.
Yeah, I think if we're talking about what this Sheffield Wednesday squad can become, then obviously João has all of the required building blocks to be a very, very top player. I would suggest that he's further away from being ready for a move to a higher level than some of the other players that we've got around here. Tom Lees is an easy spot right now for a Premier League scout.
Kieran Lee.
Yeah, exactly. Kieran Lee as well. I think you've got to go out on a limb a little bit to paint a picture where João is going to be the answer to a Premier League team's questions right now.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, it's a case of if we keep João, it shows what Mr. Chansiri wants from this football club, and he wants those players to stay. If he does disappear, then to me, I'd be quite disappointed even if it was a silly bid, because I don't think money's the issue right now. I think it's the talent in the door.
It's sad, and it's not the issue. But if you were earning 30 grand a week at Sheffield Wednesday, you could get triple that at Arsenal, Tottenham, Watford, wherever. You'd go, wouldn't you?
If I was earning 30 grand a week at Sheffield Wednesday, I'd be the happiest chap in the entire world.
You would, but you'd always want more.
Nope, not at all. More than happy.
What do people with money want more?
Yeah, what do people that don't wear football shirts for a living want to wear football shirts for a living? So, I don't know. I've never been a professional footballer, but not as I can remember anyway. But I suppose it's one of those things we'll have to wait and see, shall we?
You know what my favourite bit of that interview was, and it was brilliant listening to Jose. We all know his passion for the club and etc. Actually, it was the fact that he did like a full 5 minutes where Rob just used it as a way of checking his pronunciation of all the Portuguese players, and of course Carlos Carvalhal. So from now on, I'd like to get assurances from all of you that we are going to glorify Jose and the rest of our Portuguese contingent by pronouncing their names correctly. And so from now on, we're only going to be talking about Marco Matias. We're only going to be talking about Jose Semedo. And of course, up front, we no longer have him in attack. We have João in attack. I'm not necessarily down with the kids, but the last time I saw JWoww, she was on Jersey Shore. I can't believe that she's now playing for us in attack.
When you say João, it sounds like some kind of... it sounds like that foreign guy from Beverly Hills Cop.
Don't be ridiculous.
I still prefer Joa.
Joao sounds like some kind of thing that the cool kids would say about something that they're not wowed about. They'd be like, "Oh, Joao."
my favourite thing though is that Jose, he kind of understands that we're never going to get it right. So he basically was saying to Rob, "No, everyone calls me Semedo. Everyone calls me Semedo. It's fine." He goes, "No, mate, my actual name is Semedo. But it's fine. Don't worry about it. I don't care. Everyone calls Matthias, and he even calls it himself now because otherwise no one knows who he's talking about." So, yeah, brilliant. I love that.
Of course, speaking about interviews, there was a rather smashing one with Hursty in the Daily Mail this week as well. What a thoroughly down-to-earth chap he is.
I loved every second of that interview, by the way. I was absolutely glued to it. It was such a great piece on, obviously, my favourite player in history. And I thought it was amazing. I thought the really interesting stuff, because I always wanted to know his feelings on England and why he never really set the world alight in terms of the international scene. And it was how great he was, how graceful he was talking about Alan Shearer, and I think he was also talking about the pedigree of the strikers that he believed were better than him. And I think like you said, Lord H, there is a definite humility to it, where he just seemed like a really down to earth bloke. And he was saying, "Yeah, I was no Ian Wright, I was no Alan Shearer, and fair play to him." And I thought that was genuinely lovely. And we also got to hear about his proposed transfer move to Manchester United that we've been talking about for about 20 odd years now. I think we still bring that up quite a lot. And it was nice to hear some actual numbers and some detail and some actual bits about it, that instead of it just being a rumour.
I think for those of us who have kind of been round the circuit with Hursty for the last 10 or 15 years. There wasn't anything new in there. It's the sort of stuff that he's always been very happy to talk about. But it's great to see that that's gone out to kind of a wider audience, because I think there's an awful lot of football fans who of a certain age who remember being exhilarated and terrified in equal measure from the prospect of playing David Hirst. He really was, for those Wednesday fans listening who never got the chance to see Hirsty in his prime, he truly was the real deal. He was a player who would strike fear into the hearts of every player he played against and every fan who was cheering a team that he played against. So it's great that he's getting the chance to, quite an extended interview, to talk a little bit about, probably being the last great player who never really got the sort of money that started washing around in the Premier League at that time. So I think for us, it's a nice little trip down memory lane. I think that whole interview, that whole article might be a real eye-opener for some of those, those of a certain age, fans who are in their 30s now who maybe don't have that same connection with Hirsty that we do as Wednesday fans.
Can I read you my favourite 3 lines from that interview, which I love, and I'd forgotten about this actually, because Hirsty was at Southampton at the same time as Carlton Palmer was, who was strangely sponsored by Sanderson at the same time that we were as well. Bit spooky. So my favourite 3 lines from the interview go like this: Hirst quashes an urban myth that he and Carlton Palmer would hire a helicopter to get back to Sheffield for a night out after Southampton matches, but they did once take a chopper to Cheltenham races. To the horror of Saints boss Dave Jones, it flew over his training session and landed on a square pitch where the groundsman had marked out an H using corner flags. When a courier appeared on the touchline holding up 2 suit carriers, Jones rolled his eyes and brought the session to a premature close. As they walked down the tunnel to play a friendly game 2 days later, Palmer was still on the phone trying to retrieve a winning betting slip that he'd left in the hotel. And someone took a screenshot of this and tweeted it to Carlton Palmer saying, "Is this true?" And Carlton Palmer just replied saying, "Yes," which I just thought was brilliant. And that's my favourite thing of the whole article. I just think that's lovely. It's just made all the more funny by the fact it's Dave Jones as well.
One of my favourite bits about that little piece as well is the passion he talks about playing football, obviously with Shez, and the little tricks that used to happen, and how he's now passing that on to his son George, who obviously is, as I'm sure everybody knows, in the Wednesday Academy at the moment, and one of the reasons that Hirsty is there as well. But it's just great to have that bit of common sense football nouns rather than all the tactics and all the nonsense and all the books and all the things that we associate these days with Carlos, really. But just having someone that just knows how to hit a ball properly and just little things that just you can't. It has to be passed on by a professional.
It was the epitome of old school, wasn't it? I think Eddie was right earlier on. He was the last of that era, wasn't he? Of where it stopped being about couple of beers and then scoring a couple of goals at the weekend and all that sort of stuff. It all of a sudden became a multi-million pound business just as Hirsty was winding his career down. And he speaks, I loved the way he spoke about Shez. I genuinely adored that because he said he was one of the best midfielders he'd ever played with. And yeah, it was Mint Shez.
Absolutely. Right then, ladies and gentlemen. So the next thing we really do want to mention, it's a massive thank you, really. The Muff Fund. Let's have a muff from everybody.
Muff!
Muff! Moof.
Is that that's a Portuguese muff? That surely.
Yeah, it's a swear word somewhere. It must be.
But no, I honestly, I am truly humbled. Well, we've been doing this podcast a long time, and it is just a bit of a giggle for us. That's all we do it for, and more than the actual pennies that people have sort of thrown into the hat is the lovely messages that people have left over there as well. So I really would like to thank everybody that's done that, and of course, as a little bit of a thank you, the only way we know how to say thank you, we've done another utterly ridiculous song. Here you go. Muffin, help us get a muff. We just need a muff. Help us get a muff. When we interview you and we can't hear what you said, 'cause we ain't got a muff. Help us get a muff. Sounds like we recorded all this on cassette. Cause we ain't got a
Muff!
help us get a
Muff!
We'd like to thank everybody that threw some money in our Muff Fund hat. James Allen helped us get a
Muff!
Luke Hankin helped us get a
Muff!
Tony Skelton. Mr. Rory helped us get a
Muff!
Lee Brown helped us get a
Muff!
Nick Thompson helped us get a
Muff!
Simon Oak helped us get a Anonymous helped us get a
Muff!
Anonymous helped us get a
Muff!
Anonymous helped us get a
Muff!
helped us get a
Muff!
helped us get a
Muff!
Well, there you have it. I think we could pretty much guarantee that song will be going round in your head for hours, if not days. So I think we could use some reverse psychology here. If you don't donate to our fund, we will play that song in every podcast until we reach our target. That might work.
Yeah.
So we're currently at £210. Our target is £300. And just to explain, what we're after is some branded mic shields, better known as muffs, as I think you've worked out by now.
Muff!
Muff!
And a couple of extra microphones as well that will just mean that we can do some more video content while we're out and about at away games and maybe some at Hillsborough as well. Some more drunken interviews and things like that. So, yeah, a huge thank you to everyone. 24 people have donated now in the last 2 weeks. We're at £210. We are so kind of close. We can almost like reach out and touch it. So
Touch my
anyone
muff.
that's touched my muff over the last... No,
If we need to do it again, we can just do reach out and touch Muff. You know what I mean?
Amazing.
What do you reckon?
there we go. That's the song for next week.
But for this
so
week,
just
it is
think,
hashtag touch my muff.
if you donate to the Muff Fund between now and next week's podcast, you could hear your name immortalised in Fudge's latest Muff song suggestion.
I just come up with the titles. It's Lord H that puts the songs together. Do you know what I mean? I'm just the happiest guy.
Yeah, thanks for that. But no, absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, everybody. Right, so let's crack on, shall we? And there's been a bit of an announcement to this week that there's going to be a class of '91 reunion at the football club, which hopefully the Wednesday Week podcast will be in attendance for. But how exciting is this?
This is great, isn't it? It also brought back memories because myself, Fudge and Eddie, while we were down in London before the Charlton game, we had a relatively drunken conversation with David Garrido, who told us all about this. We then proceeded to forget all about it until the Flyers came out this week. So we were kind of like excited about it twice. It brought all the memories of that conversation flooding back.
The
Yeah,
only
it's gonna be-
memories it brought back for me was a hangover the following day. You know what I mean?
That's
All
what you
together.
get. That's what you get for drinking Fosters. No sympathy at all. Yeah, it looks brilliant, this, doesn't it? It really does look brilliant.
I'm hoping it's going to live up to the billing because obviously I don't think it gets better than this, does it? If we're going to have a 25-year reunion, there can't be too many that are better than that. I'm going to show my age here. Back in, I think it must have been 1999, I went to the 20-year reunion for the Boxing Day Massacre, and that was a dinner at Hillsborough. We had every table had one of the players on there. So we had Bob Boulder, as it happened, who was an absolutely lovely bloke. That was a brilliant night, and even for someone who doesn't remember the Boxing Day Massacre whatsoever, it was great to be part of that, that kind of Wednesday history. I'm so looking forward to this night because it's a day that that I remember like it was yesterday, possibly the best day I've ever had following Wednesday. So I really hope that it's not only a great night for everyone that's there, but if the Wednesday week crew are going to be there, I suspect we might even come over all journalists and do some of the sounds and the sights of our time there. So watch this space. And I'm going to be honest here. If we don't get in, then we'll probably try and gate crash anyway.
Yep, absolutely.
Of course, I'm going to hover outside.
Can I ask a question off the back of this? How many of us were actually there in 91?
Guilty as charged.
Yep.
I had tickets to go, and I wasn't allowed to go because my father's friend was my friend's father was my scout leader, Cub leader at the time, and I had to go to a Cub Scout rondo. Now, if anybody's been to one of these events, they are awful. You just go from one base to the next, one of them will be tying knots, the other one will be talking about building a tent, when John Sheridan scored, I was at that point riding a BMX over a ladder.
So right,
Wow.
so you were a Cub Scout. Presumably, you could have just said, "There's a big Ron Doe over at Wembley. I'm going to go there."
We're allowed to go. And I was just building on what you were saying, James, actually. And I mean this with no disrespect to him himself, but there's all those people that if it's the same build-up as like the Boxing Day Massacre one, like you say, Ed. Now, if there's a player on each table, you'd be like, oh, there's Nigel Pearson over there, and there's Erstie's one there, and what if you get stuck with like Paul Williams or Danny Wilson or Phil King? I'd be
More than happy.
I'll be more than happy with any
More
of
than
them.
happy.
Yeah.
We went to something not so long ago with Phil King, Chris Waddle, and Shez actually, and I tell you what, it was an absolute delight.
He runs a pub now, doesn't he, in Swindon, Phil King? I imagine he can
The
probably
Dolphin.
drink a few. I think
Absolutely.
I'd quite like Phil King on our table, assuming we get one. Nudge, nudge, hint, hint.
Honestly, if I had a list, I would probably have Kingy absolutely top, because his enthusiasm for that entire period outstrips anybody else's. He's unbelievable. I've been to a couple of sportsmen's dinners where he's done. He's been one of the turns, with him and Shez and Hursty, or him and Harksey and that kind of thing. You know what? He absolutely loves it. Whoever gets him on the table has absolutely hit the jackpot, as I'm concerned.
I just want to be there. I'm happy to get the Danny Wilson table and just sit there next to him all day, going, "What's
Danny
the matter
Wilson won't
with you?"
turn up.
As long as you're not on the Laurie Madden table, I think you're going to be all right.
I'd quite like the Laurie Madden table, so he can regale us with the story of his stunning run in injury time that effectively won us the game.
Take it into the corners, Laurie.
The only thing that Laurie Madden ever really did in his time at Sheffield Wednesday, the only skill that he ever showed was in that 10 seconds right at the end of the game. It was brilliant.
The key question for me is there's two big names that it presents more of a challenge for them to make it to the event than others, and that is Roland Nielsen and John Harkes. Now, I've had a bit of banter with Harksey on Twitter this week around whether he's going to be able to make it, given that he is now the head coach of not a major league soccer team, but I suppose what you'd call the equivalent of a League One team over in the States, and their season starts on that night. So he's basically go, I'm the new manager, lads, I'm the gaffer, but I tell you what, you just start the season on your own. I'm just off back to Hillsborough. So whether him and Rowley are going to be there, I don't know, but I'm sure there's going to be plenty of the lads there.
Well, it does say guests to be confirmed and subject to change and all the usual small print at the bottom there. But let's face it, they'd be lucky to be on the Wednesday week table, wouldn't they?
Well,
I hope they're all there.
It would get James to do a drunken interview with as many of them as possible.
My plan is to have one pint between each interview. So the more of them there are, the funnier it will be for everyone.
The more likely to get thrown out.
Just going back to my point of asking how many of us were there. I'd like to set a bit of a challenge at this point. I think all of us that were at the game need to dig out a photograph of us at that game. We need to get it scanned. We need to get it on our Facebook and Twitter pages so that everyone can have a right good laugh at us.
The thing is, I mean, my father went to the game, my sister went to the game, my ticket stayed at home with me whilst I proceeded to vigorously throw up. I was unfortunately unwell and missed that one, but I had a lovely time being sick into a bowl whilst watching the game. I was about 10 years old and devastated, still to this day. It's traumatic.
What made it worse for me is that I was mortified that I'd missed that game. And I was 10. And I was devastated. And then 2 years later, I'm thinking, this is it. I've got a bit of redemption. You know what I mean? This is coming back. Get me tickets to Wembley. Get them on the phone now. Yeah, that did not go well.
We talk about being sick in a bowl. I think if I post pictures of me with a kind of an early Mark Owen centre-parted wedge shaved haircut, I think most of our listeners will probably be sick in bowls, to be honest.
And of course, Vix, I should remind you, you're far too young to be remembering that kind of thing, my darling.
We'll dub her in later.
Yes.
Yeah, just say yes, Vic.
Unfortunately, Victoria seems to have left us prematurely. I think I can only guess is somewhat of an internet issue, which, of course, is a Wednesday week. Things never run smooth. So if you want to get hold of Victoria, you can do that at Victoria1867 over there on Twitter, Facebook, and all the usual things as well. It could be a great night. Hopefully, we are on the list, so hopefully we'll get the tickets and we'll be able to report from the evening itself. Another thing that it looks like it's rather hard to get a ticket for at the moment is the Stoke game. It looks like it's all sold out.
Yeah, it is. It's a sellout. It's 4,646 tickets that we've sold, which, incidentally, Stoke normally only give about 2,000 to away fans. So we've got kind of more than double their normal allowance. We have the entire stand, which is normally half and half home and away fans. So that's brilliant. And yeah, I mean, it's not exactly a glamorous tie, is it? A cold Tuesday night in December in Stoke, which is possibly the worst place in the UK, or up there with Milton Keynes and Blackpool. Never been to Croydon. Can't rate that against it. That'll be a great night.
I can't wait for this game. It's been a while since we've had a cup quarter final. I know our neighbours across the city are the Cup Kings. Of course, have had many goal-rich semi-finals, and the tales of glory will live on for years and years and years as they career down the Football League. But for us, it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because we've concentrated mainly on the league in recent years. So it's going to be a huge night. I really, really hope that that Stoke underestimate us in the way that Arsenal did, and that the Wednesday fans turn up and do exactly what we do everywhere we go. If the team respond to our prompting and we respond to the team's performance, then we're a match for anybody. So it's great news to hear that we've sold out, and it is going to be a great night, isn't it? I assume we're all meeting up for a pint beforehand, aren't we?
Oh, aye.
Fine. Right. Okay. Arrangements to be made offline.
It's not like giving out details to the legal rave. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll be sending out the instructions by mobile phone at about 10 minutes beforehand. All right.
All right. Got you.
Oh no. Jeeves, we're going to need some more equipment.
Then you need to speak to Oddballs, a speciality.
What the?
Oddballs, a speciality deal in steel, food, and engineering equipment.
Where's that voice coming from?
We offer great deals on all types of equipment and can include dismantling, delivery, and erection anywhere in the world.
Did he just say erect?
We can also buy your surplus equipment or sell it on commission. With over 30 years' experience, let us achieve the best deal for you.
Where can I find out more, Voice in the Sky?
Go to www.bentoria.com.
You heard him, folks. Jeeves, get a broom. Now we are coming towards the end of the show. I know it's been a bit of a shorter one this week. However, we do have a second pod up for this week. We had the pleasure of speaking to an up-and-coming academy player from back in the day, Mr. James Kay, who is an incredibly interesting chap, captain of the youth side. Players like Beavers and all that kind of sort of era in there as well, and just such a fantastic chat we had with the chap, and you'll be able to hear that on a second podcast. So as you're looking down at your podcast now and you're thinking it's a little bit shorter than usual, this one, don't worry, there's another pod just behind it. Please do have a listen and let us know what you think as well, because hopefully if you like that kind of thing, we can get more sort of ex-players and players on too. Right, so chaps, we are sort of coming to an end, but what we'll do is we'll have a little chat about the Huddersfield game coming up, shall we? We've got this sort of thing at the moment where we keep playing teams that have just had new managers installed, and is this something we need to worry about?
I think we need to work out how to say his name first. Is it David Wagner or is it David Wagner?
Performing on the X Factor tonight, Wagner.
I've been going with that. That's what I've been going with. I think it's that.
So he used to be, what was he? Bayern Munich's? No, not Bayern. No, where was he? He was someone's B manager, wasn't
Dortmund.
he? Was it Dortmund? So he was the Dortmund B manager, and he's now Huddersfield manager. Apparently had the chance to go to Liverpool to join Jurgen Klopp's backroom staff and turned it down in order to go to Huddersfield. He's obviously stupid, so we'll know nothing about football. So ergo, we'll win about 7-0. Yeah.
Yeah, well, obviously we're playing Huddersfield here. They are the Invincibles. They haven't lost since like 2011. So why would it change? And obviously they're going to beat us 10-0.
For me, Huddersfield, I remember, I think it was Beastie a couple of years ago, went to Huddersfield and he got sat in a seat where half the pitch was covered by a gantry above him. I don't know if anybody saw that. And I remember there was just this 4-letter expletive rant just all over Twitter going, and I'm paraphrasing here, how are they getting away with it? What they're doing? This is rubbish. And, with a lot more photos and swearing in it. There's that. And, that's all I've got on Huddersfield.
Just Andy Booth. Andy Booth.
Andy Booth used to play for him.
They have. They've got Naki Wells, haven't they? Who was a decent prospect. It's maybe not quite happened for him in the Championship. Other than that, it's a pretty ordinary squad, isn't it? There's nothing to be particularly scared of there. Naki Wells.
That sounds like an eye complaint. Do you know what I mean?
He was the guy who was at Bradford.
Yes.
Apart from that, I honestly don't really know much more about Huddersfield. It feels very much like it felt going into the Charlton match, whereby it's a game that you would think, well, we should really win this. But obviously we didn't win the Charlton one. 2 weeks rest. Hopefully a few players who've had a bit of a rest. We do seem to be going into it with a few injury problems, though. We've got Bannon is likely to be out, and that's a bit of a gutter. Obviously Hutch is out for 2 games suspended, so it's going to be a slightly different look team regardless. Possibly a slightly different formation. Don't know. It will be an interesting one.
What about Gary Hooper? Do you think he'll get a run out?
It's hard to tell, isn't it? Because he didn't do much against Charlton. There's a few people that said that they saw some potential in him against Charlton. We'd had a few beers, hadn't we? And I think for us, he was just the scapegoat. He just didn't look like he was doing that much, and he looked kind of quite heavy when he was moving. I don't know. It depends who else is going to play and whether or not he fits into that formation. He's got something about him. I just don't think. Can you play him as a lone striker though in that team? I don't think you can. I think if you play him, you've got to play someone off him, and it's probably going to have to be Atty because João's obviously been playing for Portugal, so might need a bit of a rest. Don't know. It's hard to predict this one.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that to an extent that I think we are going to have to change our system to accommodate Gary Hooper on his own up front. There's going to have to be an awful lot coming from a 5-man midfield. So I don't know. Carlos has been a brave man. I don't know whether he's that brave to change things, but we've had 2 weeks to think about it. So I think I'm probably erring more to a change that sees us keep our shape a little bit, and it wouldn't surprise me at all to see Forestieri pushed out to cover Banan and Gary Hooper playing off Atty. But we'll see what happens. I think the key is that we need to maintain that pressing high up the pitch, playing with an awful lot of pace, and causing Huddersfield problems that way, because they're a fairly kind of journeyman-like workaday team. And I think if they've got a weak point, it's that they don't respond well to teams playing at a high tempo, and I'm sure that's probably at the forefront of Carlos's thinking.
Absolutely. I mean, again, we've got this new manager bounce nonsense, but we'll see if that comes to fruition. Huddersfield have had a terrible run of results, but to be fair, they've been playing some decent teams as well. They lost 3-0 to Leeds, obviously not a decent team. They drew with Reading, lost 2-1 to Burnley, and also 2-1 to Derby as well. So hopefully they won't have quite got to Mr. Wenger. I'm going to stick with Wenger if you don't mind. They won't have got to his sort of way of playing football yet. And of course, 7-0. Simple as that.
I've got something to add. Jordan Rhodes has been on again. The story that never seems to go away. This is a story from the Daily Mirror, and it was from 2 days ago. The ambitious Owls are willing to spend big to land Ewood Hitman and hopes that the fact his dad Andy is on the Hillsborough staff will help sway the deal. I think that's something like that. The reader was terrible then. But I mean, this is Jordan Rhodes. This is never gone away, and it's not. I don't think it's ever going to. But Blackburn rejected a 14 million bid from Middlesbrough in the summer, but now Wednesday will complete a move for the striker, and Shansiri is willing to make him the highest paid player outside the Premier League. Look at that. Now, is anybody else bored of hearing about Rhodes, or does anybody seem to think that this is actually on the cards?
It's lazy journalism, isn't it? Let's be honest. It's really easy to connect the dots when it comes to Jordan Rhodes and Sheffield Wednesday. It's very unlikely that they have any kind of inside information on this one. What is undeniable is that Mr. Chansiri is prepared to do what it takes to put Wednesday in the best position possible. If we get to the January transfer window and it's clear that we have a real prospect of promotion, and the one missing piece is that striker who's going to score goals, Mr. Chansiri, I am in no doubt, will open up his checkbook and look to sign the best players imaginable. Whether that is Jordan Rhodes, I don't know. It may well be that we see Jordan Rhodes in a Wednesday shirt, but I will bet a pound to a penny that article is based on nothing more than lazy journalism and connecting the dots between Jordan Rhodes, us having some money, and Andy Rhodes being a coach at Sheffield Wednesday.
Agreed. And Blackburn themselves have come out and said that they have absolutely no intention of selling Jordan Rhodes, which means that they absolutely intend to sell him in January. I tell you what I think is possibly more likely to happen is that Patrick Bamford, who's been on loan at Crystal Palace, and I don't think has played a single minute for them, I would guess it's more likely that he will end his loan spell there early due to the fact they have about 14 strikers, and that Chelsea will want to send him out on loan somewhere else. You would think, seeing as he's not made it in the Premier League in that loan spell, that's likely to be in the Championship. Seeing as the deal was pretty much done during the summer before Crystal Palace came along, you would think that we would be fairly high up on that list, and that old friendship between Jose and Carlos might come back to fruition there, and it wouldn't surprise me if we saw him in a Wednesday shirt for the second half of this season.
That's given how long Jose's got left, by the way. Do you know what I mean?
There is that.
There's a useful friendship in a couple of weeks.
There's also the argument that he'd have a damn good chance of getting into Chelsea's team at the moment if they did recall him.
The Wednesday week is proud to be associated with Cavendish Cancer Care. Cavendish is a Sheffield charity dedicated to improving the quality of life for people living with cancer. No one should face cancer alone, so Cavendish provides emotional support through counselling and complementary therapies. The services they provide are free of charge and are funded through donations. If you can help or would like to find out more information, you can go to www.cavcare.org.uk. That's CAVCARE.org.uk. Right then, ladies and gents, so that'll put an end to this week's proceedings. As we say, please do check back on your feed right now and you will see another Wednesday week podcast regarding, obviously, Mr. James K. Brilliant. Cannot stress enough how much you need to listen to that. It's absolutely fantastic. Of course, James, if people want to get over you over there on the Twitterage, where can we do that, old boy?
I am on Twitter at James Marriott. It was a joyous week for me this week. I broke through my first 1,000 followers, so I did a little dance and that was fun. A friend of the podcast, Andy Parsons, we actually spoke to him after the Charlton game. If you heard the little interview package that we played out last week, he got married in Bali this week. The pictures that he's put on Twitter look absolutely amazing. So just want to say a quick congratulations to him. If you are knocking around this weekend on Saturday, I will be, as usual, at the Riverside Cafe, just behind or just on the corner of the South Stand and the West Stand. That's right, isn't it? West Stand. Yeah, I don't want to say Presto Stand. It sounds wrong. Before the game from about 12-ish with Victoria. And I believe, for the first time, this is breaking news, that we'll be joined by a certain Sausage Arms.
Yeah, no, I think I might make an appearance. As you said, you can find me at the Riverside Club on Saturday. I'm going to be armed with the Wednesday week's new secret weapon, which is our first actual advertising. So come and find us, and you will find out what our secret weapon is. And you can take one and show it to all your friends. In the meantime, you can find me on Twitter at JamesK89. Oh no, you can't. No, you can't. I wish that I was JamesK89. You can find me on Twitter at Sausage Arms. And also big shout out as we end the show tonight to Steve Bassford, friend of the show. He completed his fancy dress show jump dressed in a Mexican wrestling mask and blue and white dressing gown with the WWE title around his waist. He's raised over £2,000 for children in need and Sheffield Riding for the Disabled. So well done, Steve. Fist pump, big up. You are a hero in our eyes. So
absolutely. One thing though, poor Muddle, who was supposed to be riding, unfortunately, had a little bit of an issue. So Steve had to ride on Dream, didn't he? So best wishes to Muddle, and get well soon, old horse boy. Fudge, if people want to find you online, where can we do that? Right here.
You can find me in a gutter on the south coast, or you can find me on Twitter at Dan Fudge. Or you can find me on the treatment table because I attempted to play football and it's not going well. I'll not lie to you. if there's any young listeners out there, don't get old, kids. It's heartbreaking.
And if the journalist needs to pronounce your name, Fudge, how do we do that, old boy?
Fudginho.
Fudginho,
innit? Yeah, that's it. Fudginho. I'm going to go with that. That's what I'm going to have on the back of my shirt.
Of course, you can find me over there on Twitter as well at Lord_H. That's L0RD_H. You can follow the podcast at TWWcast as well. Get us over there on Facebook. Of course, it's just the actual Facebook page now. We've been a little bit rumbled over there. And of course, you can send us an email too at twwpodcast@gmail.com. Ladies and gents, it's been an absolute pleasure as always. Again, please do click over right now and listen to the James K interview. You'll not regret it. Be good, be safe, and we'll see you all real soon.
There's a chance here, a great save. A turner from McClare. Mike Hunt. A terrific goal by Sheridan.
Rexman against Jones. Get in.
You could have two goalkeepers in there that would have trouble saving that.
Brilliant. Right, so I think that'll do us.
God, that was a long one, wasn't it? What time is it? It's half 11.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of shite in there. Back to Hamilton.
Yeah, once you cut the knob gags out, that's pretty much.